Welcome back inside the vault. It's a Friday. It's September 12th, and we got a bonus episode, Sarah, because let's be honest, whenever we can get somebody from the Athletic inside the vault, we are taking that and we are running. And that is the case with Zach Jackson, who covers the Cleveland Browns for the Athletic, kind enough to spend a few minutes with us. I feel like I've spoken to him at some point before. I can't remember if it was here or elsewhere, but maybe Zach will be able to tell us. We're going to get the Cleveland perspective from him and a whole lot more. Zach, thanks for carving out some time. It's been a heck of a 48 hours or so in this news cycle leading into week 2. I typically ask our beat reporter guests, what's the state of the Browns? But I think we already know. I mean, let's just quickly get into this. It's a 10.5 point underdog deficit, if you will, that they're looking at, the disrespect that they clearly feel going into this week 2 performance against an AFC North divisional opponent, a game of an opponent of which they beat. They split, of course, the regular season series last year. You've got all kinds of player chatter going on. You've got the 30th anniversary that sprinkles in a little bit of drama. So I guess that's a long way of asking, what is the state of these Browns?
Yeah, I mean, the Browns are angry, right? They gave one away last week. They completely outplayed the Bengals for half of that game, if not more, and they didn't win. And it's all on them. The 2 interceptions were not perfectly thrown balls, but they hit receivers in the hands that ended up as interceptions. They miss an extra point in a 36-yard field goal, which is mandatory. They lose the game after giving up 7 yards in the first half. So, you can always sprain an ankle jumping to conclusions in week 1, but the Browns this is who they are. They have a really good to elite defense. They have a shaky offense. They don't have much margin for error. They don't have much depth, right? So they're healthy. They're angry. Myles Garrett is one of the top X number of players in the game. Denzel Ward is one of the top X number of players in the game. I think the Browns and Ravens have split in 6 of the last 7 years, which speaks to the competitiveness of the AFC North and, how you can't take anything for granted. But the Browns are going to need to play a nearly perfect game to keep this thing close, let's be honest. So they want Myles to do what he does. They want to win or at least push in the turnover battle. Then I think they want some doubt to creep in with the Ravens, and whether that's, their offense not being able to click the way it was, or maybe if they do have a lead and the Browns can crack into it, maybe some of last week and some of what's become a trend has popped up. But this is a double-digit spread for a reason. This is a Super Bowl contender versus a top 5 draft contender. I do think the Browns are hard to play against. I do think they have more talent than most of the bottom teams in the league, but they are a bottom team in the league until they prove differently, and no talking or speculating or tweeting is going to change that. They have to go out and do it on the field.
And, to the Browns' credit, it does seem like they always play the Ravens close, or at least frequently, maybe not always, but very frequently. And then, and that happens in the AFC North all the time. And so I'm kind of wondering, some of the chatter, like you talked about, no tweeting or talking is really going to change that. I'm just wondering, but does that stuff, are they trying to, it feels like some of it's like the Michael Jordan manufactured disrespect, like you're like angry at the Ravens for a Vegas spread, or like that you're having a 30th season celebration at the game opener. And I get the history of like the Browns and the Ravens and Art Modell coming out here, but do you feel like some of this is manufactured a little bit to get themselves up?
Yeah, I think it's 2 different things, right? I think Grant Delpit answered the question, and I don't think he was really trying to be inflammatory, but he knew what he was saying. I think that's harmless. I think the 30th anniversary, I think fans in Cleveland are inflamed by that. That was probably the truth. There's not one player that gives a shit about it. And Todd Heap being on the sideline before the game means absolutely nothing to what happens between those lines, right? So people in Cleveland are mad. I do think it was intentional. Steve Bisciotti made very clear what he thinks about the Deshaun Watson contract. Sashi Brown, who runs the business operations for the Ravens, used to run the football operations for the Browns, which is one of the all-time jokes. I mean, the guy's in charge of suite sales and stadium reconstruction. He was running the roster for the Browns, right? Like, the Browns are an all-time joke organization. They just are. So they can make all these tweets and all these quotes that they want. They have to prove it on the field. They outspend everyone. They were 3-14. They stink, right? Like, they just have for 25 years. I don't know how else to say it. So there's been times when this rivalry has been interesting. They have split in 6 of the last 7 years. Kyle Hamilton dropping that interception last year cost the Browns Cam Ward, right? But so there's so many more things. And what goes on pregame or what was said yesterday in each locker room, 400 miles apart from each other, means nothing.
Zach, just in case anybody on the other end watching this has been living under a rock these last couple days, let's just fully get caught up to speed on what the heck we're talking about here.
Yeah, so they asked.
Not hard.
Yeah.
Derek, did you get a chance to see Grant Delpit? You said that you're not hard to tackle, and do you have a reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that. I saw his coach had a tweet, a quote, and, he had a quote. We'll see on Sunday.
Jerry, Baltimore secondary, a lot of notable names back there. Just what are the challenges that presents to you guys as receiving?
No challenges.
I mean, guys say whatever you're going to say. I really don't care. That's the thing with, bulletin and board material that I never understood is, was I not going to play hard before he said that? So it's I'm going to play the same way I was going to play. If you need bulletin board material to go play how you need to play, then that's a problem on you. So, I guess he's trying to get himself right for the game, and, we're doing the same thing. So, we'll see on Sunday, but we're excited to go out there.
Get your popcorn ready. I think that best summarizes it right there, right? First, Grant Delpit. Then Derrick Henry responds in business-like fashion. Then Jerry Jeudy takes a shot at the secondary. Kyle Hamilton has his say right there. So that's kind of what we're discussing right now. And you go back to the game, Zach, that you mentioned the first time around last year, week 8, 29-24 was the decision that went in Cleveland's favor. You mentioned probably a play that Kyle Hamilton would make 99 times out of 100, right in his breadbasket, drops it. I went back and looked at the stats here. 2 of 10 were the Ravens on third down. And I think if there's a way for Cleveland to hang around and sort of take the stadium energy out of it, it's that defensive front winning in the trenches. Because one thing that sticks out the most from this game, as I look back a year ago, the Ravens got outmanned, outbodied, and outperformed in the trenches that day.
They did. The Browns, they call their defensive line the engine of the defense and really the whole team, and that's what it is. They know every single team has to change their game plan to an extent to account for Myles Garrett, right? And they have they teach a certain way. It's always attack. It's always upfield. They move guys around a little, but not a lot, enough to make you kind of get out of your comfort zone and not just be able to make 1 or 2 assignments towards Myles. And Myles can do things. Go back 2 years to that game that the Browns came back from the double-digit deficits twice in Baltimore. I mean, Lamar's dropping back, and he's looking for Myles on those, and that's just the impact that Myles can make. So all 3 of the Browns' sacks last week came in succession. Myles had 2 of them. The Bengals admitted we don't usually call timeouts in certain situations. We don't usually approach things in certain situations, but we do against Myles Garrett, right? And so that's going to weigh into what Lamar's doing, what Todd Monken's doing, all of that. So, yes, any chance the Browns have to win or at least make the Ravens really uncomfortable this week starts with their defensive line delivering an A-plus performance really for the second straight week.
Well, let's dive into that a little bit more with Myles Garrett. I mean, it's mostly a matchup, or has been, between Myles and Ronnie Stanley. Ronnie Stanley finally healthy again. He's coming off a game against the Bills where he gave up 0 pressures for Lamar Jackson. And I think that he's in the past had Myles Garrett below his usual pass rush win rate, which is still really high though.
Sure.
So your thoughts on that matchup, but also, did you say they won't move Garrett around? Because if I'm the Browns, I'm like, let me get Garrett over on number 77, Daniel Alele, and just take advantage of that all day long.
Yeah, they won't move him around very often. They will move him to an extent, right? I think, I know those numbers. I think sometimes Myles has played not when Ronnie Stanley's been out, but the thing is, it doesn't show up in the numbers. Myles is fast enough to keep up with Lamar. He's not beating Lamar in a 40-yard sprint, but he's fast enough to really do things that most people can't do. And then the other thing is Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who was one of the league's fastest linebackers. He's out for the season and potentially will never play again after that collision with Derrick Henry last year. But he was a key part of the Browns defense that just had more speed, that the kind of speed that teams can't put on the field against Lamar all the time. So I think that was a big part of it. So there will be that cat and mouse game, but the Browns don't run from what they are on that defensive front, right? And they're going to get back there and try to cause havoc. So, obviously Lamar is natural at making plays on the move. I think sometimes teams try to add a little more misdirection to their offense than they're used to offset the Browns. But you have to block them up front. And the way to really beat them, the way the Bengals had success last week in the first half, is to run it right at them. And that was with Chase Brown, who's about 190. So with Derrick Henry coming downhill, I mean, that's going to be the whole thing. Can the Ravens set the tone early and get that Browns defensive front back on their heels?
Man, Zach, you just said something. I don't think I've paid attention to this enough since JOK went down, and talk about somebody that look, I don't know if anybody can run with Lamar, so to
Yeah.
speak, which is what you didn't suggest that whatsoever, but
yeah,
but JOK's a freak in his own right? This guy's an athletic freak. And for level 2 in Cleveland, he had some great plays on tape trying to contain Lamar over the years. Matter of fact, I think he was at the forefront of an injury a few years ago, wasn't it? For Lamar,
he had a big hit on Lamar a few years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd have to go back to the exact game, but
yeah, I want to say it was either in 21 or 22, which ended up being the injury plagued years down the second half stretch for Lamar those respective seasons. But I just pulled this up as a reminder of the aftermath of that hit that he sustained that you mentioned from the King going downhill. So his football career is in jeopardy moving forward?
Yeah. We're not sure he's ever going to play again. He's definitely out for this year. So it was a catastrophic neck injury. So we will see. So they drafted Carson Schlesinger in the second round, who's off to a phenomenal start. And they're different. They're very different players. They play different positions, middle versus outside. And Carson is not as fast as JOK. I don't know that any linebacker, he might not be the fastest. He was certainly in the top 3. But it'll be Carson's first time out there against Lamar, which is always an experience. But I just thought, the Browns built their front. That's the way Jim Schwartz has always coached. But they built their front in mind with we have to run with Lamar and with Joe Burrow, to an extent. And they have done well against Joe Burrow. I think comparatively, they've done well against Lamar. You look at Lamar's numbers the last 2 years; they're outrageous. But I only watched the parts of Lamar's interview this week where he talked about Joe Flacco. Understandably, right? But I think when they watch the tape, they have to look and say most fronts don't have guys that can run the way the Cleveland guys can.
Yeah. Right. So obviously their goal, as everybody's goal is, but the Cleveland Browns actually have the talent to try to slow. You're not going to stop, but slow the Henry and Lamar running attack. Do you feel like then just to go into the secondary, give us some thoughts on your secondary. Do you feel like the secondary has the talent to also maybe slow down, Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman and all those guys in the passing game?
Yeah, I would say the problem area is the slot corner, where they lost Martin Emerson, who was to me their second most talented corner. So that means Greg Newsome is a full-time starter and full-time playing outside rather than he was playing inside. So inside is Miles Harden, who's a very small player, a second-year player, who really has not had much game action. So Greg Newsome was awesome last week. He did have a PI on Jamar Chase, but Ward and Newsome both did a wonderful job. And I think some of that was just shape of the game, and some of the pass rush obviously helps. So the Browns feel strongly about their defense, but when you start picking at it, they get thin quickly at linebacker. It's safety, maybe not. I think Delpit is certainly strong or fast enough to run with Mark Andrews. I think Andrews has obviously had success against the Browns over the years, as he has against a lot of teams. But as long as they can keep the pocket clean and get him downfield, then I think Zay Flowers out of the slot or Zay Flowers being used to set up the deep ball is what we'll see on Sunday.
How's their overall health situation looking? This is Thursday's injury report that you're looking at right
here.
Yeah,
it's very good. They lost Jack Conklin to getting poked in the eye last week, and it was nasty. He missed the rest of the game, but he's been practicing. If they have one injured guy, it will be Mike Hall, the second-year defensive tackle who was hurt in last year's season finale in Baltimore. He's only been back at practice. So we're waiting on Mike Hall. We're waiting on Quinshon Judkins, who's only had one practice since June. So even if he plays, what is realistically his role, I don't know. But the Browns are healthy, and that's a big deal when you get out of week one without any major injuries.
That is a big deal. Well, let's flip over to the other side. I can't believe we're about 15 minutes into this, and we're only now bringing up Joe Flacco, former Ravens Super Bowl winner and MVP. He's on his way back. So I'll start first, like the off-field kind of emotions of it all, and then we'll kind of get into the football a little bit. We know Joe Flacco pretty well. We call him Joe Cool. You never know his emotions once he's on the field. What is kind of your take talking to him and listening to him this week about his approach coming back to M&T Bank Stadium for the first time?
Yeah, Joe is very confident in himself and what he sees. He's seen it all in this league, right? He's very blunt with what he thinks about things. When he came in 23, it was this magical run, and it happened out of nowhere. Like, he was taking his kids to school and throwing at a park near his house, just hoping someone would call. The Browns did. He got hot. They made the playoffs. Like, he's forever a legend in Cleveland. He killed the Browns for years. He's the third winningest quarterback in the history of Browns Stadium. But, now he's revered here. And he was pretty open. Like, he said, I'm going to go on the field 10 minutes early on Sunday. And for Joe to say that is pretty much, as you guys know, is basically saying, yes, I'm as excited as I've ever been for a football game. Right. But, they brought him here to tutor, to make sure guys are in the right place. And he doesn't need to be playing football at 40 with his kids back at home in Jersey. He wants to prove that he can still play. And he was pretty good last week. And he wants to prove to the Ravens that he can still play. So, we'll see what happens. He wasn't perfect. He's still getting used to this. They had kind of a competition that never really developed into one. But, he wasn't here with Jerry Jeudy. The guy he targeted the most last week is a 21-year-old rookie, Harold Fannin. He's double the age of his starting running back, Dylan Sampson. So this is new. But I think Joe obviously he knew this was on the schedule. He knew that he was going to have to earn the job in Cleveland. But I think he kind of saw things going a certain way, and they are going a certain way. And I think part of him being blunt is that, like, hey, there's pieces here. We're not there yet. And we know it's a hell of a challenge going to Baltimore. So let's see what happens. So I do think the personal side, the sentimental side is a little bit there, but he would be, if he didn't think that he could really play football at a high level, he would be on the sidelines here on Sunday with his old buddies. He wouldn't be suiting up, in the white jersey.
And let's be clear too, Zach. I mean, if it's not for a missed extra point, a missed field goal, 2 pass deflections that end up in interceptions, Cleveland's walking into this game 1-0.
Sure. I mean, they completely outplayed the Bengals in the second half. 3 times in the fourth quarter were in Cincinnati territory and got 0 points. And, one of those is a 36-yard missed field goal, which has to be automatic. And one of them is 3rd down, great pass, drop. 4th down, go for it, great pass, drop. So, you got to execute, right? Offense, defense, special teams, but they didn't there. And nobody came away saying, boy, does Flacco stink. Now, is he going to hold up? Is he going to be the answer? I don't know. Maybe the guy's just going to play until he's 50, right? And maybe the Browns are going to be good and he's going to play most of this year. But he knows he's the quarterback here until he's not. And if he's ever going to be up for one, it's going to be coming back to this stadium on Sunday and trying to get a win where if they don't win this one, we don't know when a win is coming.
Yeah. Right. That's the thing is both the Ravens and the Browns are coming out of games where it was like, we had that game, like we should have won it. And so they want to prove like, no, we're still good. But yet one of these teams is going to be 0-2 and still feel like they have a great team that, that their record doesn't show that they're a great team. So if we're talking about the Browns, I read, and it's a weekly read of mine. I always like reading your guys' AFC North whip around on The Athletic. I read in there from you this morning that you still feel like, and it's week 1, I know, so this could change, but you kind of feel like the Browns offense is going to have a hard time scoring more to 16 to 17 points.
Yeah, it is.
That's that. And as good as the Browns defense is, I feel like the Ravens can score more than that.
Yes.
So like if all were to go right in an ideal scenario, what would go right for Joe Flacco to lead this offense to break 20 points or more and actually put up some significant points?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I do feel like most weeks, and this made last week hurt more, right? Like that is the kind of game the Browns have to have. Limited possessions, long drives, 19-17, 17-16, whatever it's going to be. This week, I feel like they need to score 27, 31, right? Like if the Browns win, it's a Flacco, Lamar shootout. It's big plays. And it's 34-ish, 31, 31-28. And in that is obviously the Browns defense helping them win the turnover battle and Joe getting a couple of big ones. That's what it has to be. So, now that being said, maybe the Browns win 14-13 here on Sunday. But I think the Browns' upset chances lie in just scoring like crazy. And Flacco, not just 300 yards, but 350, 400 if they're going to have a chance to win on Sunday.
Two things for me. One, if you have a score prediction and an ultimate winner, and then 2, has this whole quarterback storm, vicious news cycle from over the summer died down a little bit? Will it continue to ramp up over the next couple of weeks? Should they start to look at 0-2 in the face, 0-3, so on and so forth? Kenny Pickett's no longer with the organization. Can you give us an update on the rehab for Deshaun Watson, which is like the elephant in the room? What do you have for us there?
Yeah, it has died down, right? Because it was the buzz. It was all that anybody's talking about. By the time they named Joe the starter on, say, like August 18th, it pretty much been clear that Joe was going to be the starter. Neither rookie was going to unseat 40-year-old Joe Flacco in a 4-week summer span. And the team didn't want that, right? So the reality is at 0-2, at 0-3, they're not bailing on the season. At 1-6, with not many guys under contract for next year. Watson being under contract for $80 million on the cap next year for a team that already has 2 first-round picks. Like, there's going to be decisions made about the future, right? And they're not going to play the 40-year-old a minute more than they have to. And that makes sense, right? So in week 2, they're trying to like hell to win the game, and they're trying to clean up some of the things offensively and defensively, and obviously special teams wise. But yeah, they go to London week 5 in about 3 weeks. They come back, they play Pittsburgh on a short turnaround. Anytime after that, it is in play that if this team is not a realistic contender, that it's time to play the rookies. Quinshon Judkins, when he's activated, that will make 13 rookies on the 53-man roster. 2 of them are quarterbacks, right? 3 of them are running backs. 1 of them is a wide receiver. Like, it's time to play the kids and find out what you have. So Jerry Jeudy's going to be on this team going forward. Their 4 best offensive linemen, all of whom would play for anybody and all of whom have had wonderful careers, are all over 30 and are only signed through this year. So it's time to start getting ready for the future. Joel Bitonio, borderline Hall of Famer. Wyatt Teller, multiple-time Pro Bowler. Jack Conklin, multiple-time Pro Bowler. Great player when he's been healthy. Jack Conklin's been a top 5 right tackle in this league. Those guys are all on the wrong side of 30 and all eligible for free agency next March.
And so based off of what you saw in training camp every day, if it gets to that point and they're no longer contenders and they're going to go ahead and say, Joe, we're not going to put you out there anymore. Is it Dylan Gabriel that's going to get the first look? And then when you say play the rookies, like, do you see them giving both a chance, or is it like, okay, we're going to go all in on one of them?
Yeah, Dylan's going to be next. There's no doubt about it. That's okay. Draft stock, and that's how the summer played out, right? I think Shedeur is more talented than Dylan. I don't think there's any doubt about that. He's not in front of him right now. So when I say play the rookies, I'm glad you pointed that out. I didn't say that intentionally, but I do mean that, right? Sarah, 11 times since the Browns came back in 99, they've had at least 3 different starting quarterbacks in a year. Like, this is going to be 12, right? Like, it is. And Deshaun Watson may or may not be cleared. He may or may not be activated. He may or may not be the 3rd option or 33rd realistic option. They might sign someone out of the crowd before they put him back in a football game here, right? But he was on the 90-man roster. Of the 90-man roster in camp, they were carrying 6 quarterbacks for the last 4 weeks of camp, right? So I don't know what's going to happen. I can tell you that Dylan Gabriel is next. How that will go, what they will have to do to put him in a chance to succeed, and will it look like anything other than that he's the career backup that he's going to be, I can't say for sure, right? But I do think over the course of the year that we will see multiple quarterbacks. Obviously, if Joe is playing and it means Joe's healthy, it means the team is competing, and we'll see. But anything, including Joe being released or traded to a contender, is in play. And I don't know, but Dylan Gabriel is clearly next for now, and it would take something crazy to change that. But then how it goes from there, I don't know. I mean, last time we were in Baltimore, they started Bailey Zappi, right? He's back on the practice squad. Yeah, he started the finale. That was number 40. So the reason they're not at 41 yet is because Joe was number 40 in 2023. So Dylan Gabriel will be 41, and then Shedeur will be 42 if it gets to that point. I would tell you history says, and my gut says it's going to get to that point. But it's funny, I was doing a local show here yesterday, and all these questions were about November. And I was like, dude, it's September 11th. Like, but the team is not coming out and saying that, but they're not running from it either, right? Why did they trade out of the 2-hole to get a first rounder for next year? It's not a surprise to the people running the team that they only have 35 players under contract for next year. And like 10 of those guys are borderline NFL players at best, right? Like, they were all in on last year and this year for Deshaun Watson. And because that didn't work out, guys are going to move on. And it's great that they're healthy. They're bringing 52 or 53 available guys on that plane tomorrow. But what's it going to look like in 6 weeks? It's just the reality. I'm not wishing it on anybody. It's just the reality of it.
Right. You've been living this life.
That's why I look so damn old, Bobby, because I've been covering this team for a long, long time.
Hey, that might be the case. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you are. But how about the recall from somebody with all that wisdom? Bailey Zappi. I got the box score up right in front of me.
There we go.
It's the regular season finale last year, 35-10 thumping in favor of Baltimore at home.
I don't even remember the 10, to tell you the truth. I don't.
Well, you want to know who also was under center too?
Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
DTR.
Oh, encyclopedia over there.
The saddest encyclopedia ever.
Oh man, Zach, for the record, we know you got to go. Let us know two things: your overall prediction for the record, and then where everybody can find your work on The Athletic coming up if they want to get ready for week 2.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a competitive game. I think the Ravens will have a little too much gas in the end. So whether that's the last 20 minutes or the last 4 minutes, I'm going to take the Ravens in a 31-23-ish type of game. I do think Flacco will play well. I do think the Browns will have a good plan. I think that people will come away saying, man, Myles Garrett is good. And if he was on a winning team, he would be perceived a lot differently. So I'm at The Athletic. I'm at Akron Jackson on all the socials, and my podcast is Zach Jackson and Friends on all the famous podcast platforms.
We appreciate you, Zach. Thanks so much. Safe travels. And I guess you're going to be coming to Baltimore, I would think.
I will be there tomorrow afternoon.
All right.
Sounds
Enjoy
good.
your visit.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Zach.
so much for the time. Zach Jackson of The Athletic. Oh, man, I love his dry humor.
Yeah.
So blunt, man. Sarah, this week, right, the blunt assessment of that Marlon Humphrey gave and relayed, of course, from the staff and whatnot, makes you think that's the first thing that comes to mind. But I think Zach just said, I want a piece of that pie as well,
Well, he even from the beginning, he's like, we're terrible. We're terrible. We're going to this and that. He did squeeze in there. And he's like, I do think it's intentional. Like the 30th anniversary. Did you notice that at the very beginning? He's like, I do think it was intentional. And it's like, I don't know, unless the Ravens have some sort of control over the schedule. I don't know. I just don't think Steve Bisciotti's petty like that. I just don't. And so that just lets you know, even for somebody is even kill and objective minded, that is the thought in Cleveland. It's all on purpose. And so it's fine, let's believe it. And then hopefully the final score is what Zach says it is, around 31-23, which isn't quite covering, right, the spread. And I think the spread is it still 10.5? Because the last time I looked, I think it was 11.5.
Let's get a live update at the time of this recording, which is Friday morning. I'll let you know right now. Let's see. And by the way, as we always ask, these guys do this out of obviously their own timing and interest and generosity. If you guys could just shoot a quick note of thanks if you got something out of that to Zach on X or Twitter. Right there at Akron Jackson, which is I like that. Akron Jackson, not to be confused with Action Jackson in Baltimore. So thanks to Zach for his time. And it is 11.5 now.
That's what I thought. Yeah. So, no, but I think he had a great assessment. Myles Garrett is obviously the straw that stirs the drink, but it's still of a very good defense. And again, they know Lamar Jackson similar to the way the Steelers do. And so it's it doesn't matter that the Browns are this dysfunctional organization. And even if Zach is correct that by the end of this, we're going to see all 3 quarterbacks because maybe they won't be in contention. Even with all of that, I do think this defense can give I don't think they're going to give up 40 points, right? I don't think they're going to give up 40 points the way the Buffalo Bills did. And it did bring some comfort to my heart that they won't, according to Zach, move Myles Garrett around by number 77. It's yes, this is the best matchup we can have is keep him over by Ronnie Stanley. Ronnie Stanley will still have his hands full. Myles Garrett will still get his, but yes, let's keep him over on the left-hand side against, Ronnie Stanley and Lamar will keep tabs on him over there. But I here's my thing, Bobby. I don't know who the Ravens defense is yet. That's probably the biggest question mark to me. Are we going to see a repeat of the first 10 weeks of last year's defense where they at times look great and then other times just have the most head scratching plays and these big chunks that they give up? Because theoretically on paper, Zach's right. The Browns and Joe Flacco should not score more than 20 points. They should be sub 20. But I still don't, on paper, the defense is phenomenal. And I get that it's Joe Flacco on the other side, and it's not to disrespect him, but obviously, because he's obviously a Super Bowl winner, but he's also not in his prime where Josh Allen was. And so I don't suspect that the Ravens defense is going to give up, 30 points or whatever, but would they give up 27? Would they give up, 24? And then somehow that defense picks something up. And so I just would like to know who the Ravens defense is. And I don't know yet. So like, I believe the Ravens are going to win this game, but I'm like, how many points are the Ravens defense going to give up? What are your thoughts on that?
We have no idea who they are yet.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely no idea. 30-17 is going to be my prediction, though. 30-17 in a game that feels a lot closer than that final score indicates from a prediction standpoint. And like I mentioned to Zach, Sarah, I'm telling you, you go back to that Week 8 game, and I'm getting flashbacks as I look at the statistical breakdown from that. 29-24, that game was played in Cleveland. And, of course, it was the dropped Woodby interception that would have sealed the game there on Jameis Winston by Kyle Hamilton. The Ravens were 2 of 10 on third down. And while as much as we came out of that game, right, thinking that it was the self-inflicted wounds, like a Kyle Hamilton dropped interception that ultimately finalized that end result, I'm sorry. There's even more of a conversation, I think, in a case to be made that they just didn't win. They didn't win in the trenches. 2 of 10 suggests that. Being outpossessed time of possession-wise by Cleveland suggests that. They got beat in their own game in that game. So Myles Garrett and company, and like he said, I've totally forgot that the entire line is not only 1 over 30, but 2 in their contract years, meaning this team's going to look so much different probably a year from now. What do you say? There's 13 traveling rookies to this game this weekend, 12 or 13?
Yeah.
So you let them hang around and beat you up the way they did it in the first of those 2 games where they had something to play for at that time. Granted, they were 1-5 going into that week as I look here. Whereas, as Zach mentioned with great recall, Bailey Zappi was your starter. The season's over. You're playing for draft jockeying and whatnot in the regular season finale, and the Ravens had already wrapped up the division. But you know what I mean? Like, you let them hang around early and bully you from the jump, and this thing could get interesting. We know Joe's certainly capable of making things interesting, but ultimately, I just don't think that, the way that this Ravens offense proved that on Sunday night, that while it was stymied in the fourth quarter and it got vanilla and ugly and subpar, they have too much firepower to not be able to put up 30 points.
Right.
And so I'm going 30-17 coming up on Sunday at 1:00 in a game filled with emotions.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you say do not let them hang around. If you let them hang around, that's when things get scary, and that's where like Terrell Suggs, the stuff starts to come up in the back of your mind, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go with what I suspect would happen on paper. I don't know if the Ravens are going to melt down, all that kind of stuff. You'd think with the 30th season anniversary, there wouldn't be like a letdown, right? I don't see a real threat with that, with all the festivities that are going to be going on and all the legends that'll be there. I just don't see a letdown there. You could see a late collapse or something. I don't know. So I'm going to go with I'm going to just say the Ravens are having a bounce back game. So I'm going to go with what looks to me is on paper and ignore perhaps the emotional, collapses and all that. And I'll say 30-20. I do think that, they could get up to 20 there. But yeah, you're right. Like, why wouldn't this offense score 30 points, even against this defense? We're not asking for 40. 30-20 will be my prediction.
Yeah. And like, I was in the 30s. I know for those that follow us to a T, you're like probably thinking out there, man, you guys give such similar scores and look what they did to Buffalo. But it's different when it's in division. It's just, different. And was it different in the regular season finale last year? No, but Cleveland had very little to play for. Like, they were still mathematically in it in week 8. And I think that has a psychological impact on a team. So anyway, I'm going 30-17. Your prediction's out there. Zach's is out there. He is something else.
Out there.
That was awesome. Zach Jackson of The Athletic. Again, if you guys could go just shoot him a quick note of thanks if you got something out of today, we would appreciate that. And Sarah, I also want to just let everybody know that we had a great interview, I think, in our best of playlist section that can be looked at now, just in case you missed it, with the great Terrell Suggs. He joined us earlier this week. It was great to catch up with him. Sarah, he gave us a lot of time. I think we could have kept going with him. I was thinking about that as I went to bed. on Thursday night. Like, could we have gone an hour with Sis, but we didn't want to take advantage of it. But we do appreciate that. That was an awesome interview. Don't you think?
It was great. Absolutely great. I think he gave us a lot of great insight in his thoughts on the Ravens and where they are and why it's a make and break year. His thoughts on John Harbaugh, his thoughts on Odafe Owe and Mike Green, his thoughts on these late collapses and how he kept calling it quicksand, that, players can get caught psychologically in quicksand. So like so many great things. Yeah. If people haven't heard it yet, definitely go check that out.
No doubt. And we appreciate you guys for spending some time with us in this game preview episode. Of course, this is a best of clip. You can go check out Friday's live stream in full under the live stream tab. So for Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trossett. Special thanks to Zach Jackson for being our featured guest in this episode. And as always, guys, if you want to help out the channel grow, like the video on your way out, subscribe, hit that notification bell, consider becoming a channel member or gift-giving membership, and maybe, just maybe, grabbing yourself a Vault merch item for this upcoming season. You can visit thevaultpod.com/shop, all of which can be found in our show notes below. And before we get on out of here, let me say shout out to Darren Alexander and Octavian House. Thank you both for believing in what we're building. You guys are a part of our Patreon community, and we appreciate you both very much. Vaultrons, as always, we thank you, and we'll catch up with you soon here inside the Vault, probably next on game day.